Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs. That's why you need Shopify. They'll help you create a convenient, unified command center for whatever your business throws at you, whether you sell online, in-store, or both. You can sell the way you want, attract the customers you need, and keep them coming back. Turn those what ifs into why nots with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer. That's shopify.com/special offer.
This is William Tincup, Mariah Leary. This is Inside the C-Suite. This is where we kind of talk to CEOs about their journey. We have Michael Nadeau on today, and we're going to be talking all about him, what he's currently doing, and also where he's been, how he got there. So, Michael, would you do us a favor and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, William. It's good to see you. We got 100%. A lot of history together over the last couple decades, but yeah, I'm here in Dallas, Texas. I've currently been building a new HR tech around the hiring space, which has been a fun journey, pretty long journey. We've been working on it the last 4 years, and I've been in and around this business for the last 24 years or so, really 30 years, goes back to the kind of early 90s, and I've always been really passionate about problem solving. I see problems and I try and figure out how to solve them and make a business out of them. And most of my career has always been around people. It's been around people issues. And, I went on a really unique journey from 2000 to call it 2016. That was around people and people's health, which was really fun. And obviously, William, you were involved, quite extensively with that company in terms of our message and our brand. But, that was a really fun journey, and I was 30 years old and really didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I'm a believer in reps, and I figure if you just keep out repping everybody, you'll find the answer. And so, one of my favorite, I'll get the quote wrong, so I shouldn't even say quote, but Shawshank Redemption. There was a Morgan Freeman said he used to think it would take Andy Dufresne hundreds of years to dig his way out of here, and he did it in X, and just called pressure and time. So. My big philosophy in life is pressure and time. Just keep showing up, work harder, and figure it out and solve problems. And, today those problems, and really over the last 20 years have been if you can build software to make people's lives easier. And, Steve Jobs said it best. If you don't focus on the customer and create a great experience, it doesn't matter how great your product is. So that's kind of the philosophies that we live off of when we're building things. And I think this latest project is poised to do some pretty special things.
So for those that are watching, they can see the helmets in the background. Those that are listening, there are helmets in the background.
I knew you were going to ask about those helmets.
Well, look, I don't have an exciting life. So when I see helmets with shields on them and they're painted pretty cool colors, I need to know the story. What's the story behind that?
There's a few on the wall. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire, and we played with toys growing up. That's just who we were. And, when I was a kid, I was probably a little more reckless than I am at age 50. But when I moved to Texas in 1998, I started spending more and more time on the track. I know a lot of people don't think that's a safe place, but I can tell you it's the safest place in the world. The most dangerous thing is other cars and drivers. So I've been, hobbyist at racing for a long time, cars and motorcycles and those types of things. These days, it's a lot of track day fun. When I say these days, maybe 4 times last year because I'm a little busy. But back in the day, I spent a fair bit of time. I do have one of my portfolio companies is a motorsports company down just south of Fort Worth. And we do all things for Motorsports Enthusiast. And so I get to go out to the track and play with the guys and go karts with the kids. And every once in a while, get on the big bikes and rip around the track and have some fun. So I've always enjoyed the art and the thrill of being able to take a machine like that and drive a car to its capabilities. Nothing would drive me crazier than to see some, especially here in Dallas, some fancy guy with his fancy ass sports car and literally has never driven that car the way it was meant to be driven. And look, I'm guilty of it. I had a nice little success run and had some really cool toys. And I remember saying one day, why the heck do I even have this car? It belongs on a racetrack. And I got rid of them and bought a race car because that's made for the racetrack. And so it's a lot of fun. It's something I wish I had more time to do these days, but my biggest passions right now are, being being a dad and working. So those things are a little bit on the shelf. And unfortunately, some of those helmets on the wall are there for a reason because they've got some marks on them. But as they say, there's no way to find the edge or the limit until you find it. So I definitely found it.
Those are the ones that found it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never met anyone who's fast that hasn't crashed. So let's just say I've crashed a lot. So
because that's the analogy of if you're not trying, that's ultimately you have to crash, because if you don't crash, you're not trying hard enough.
That's right. Fear of failure. And I definitely do not have a fear of failure. I have a respect for the pain, and I've got the rods in my shoulder to prove it.
I was about to say the knee pads.
Nice. Plenty of them. And listen, I don't recommend it, but listen, it's who I am. I'm a guy that's not afraid to push the limits and take some risks, and hopefully get the rewards for it.
Did you ski when you were in New Hampshire when you were up that way?
No, yeah.
I'm assuming you Black Diamonds was kind of you're not you weren't the green or blue.
No, we would leave. We would actually have ski days at school where the bus would leave at 12 o'clock, and we would all go to Gunstock, a little ski mountain, and go up there and go skiing. So yeah,
that's fantastic. So not reckless, but enjoying the speed from a very
adventurous.
That's a better way of phrasing it. So you could have fixed anything. So obviously you looked at a lot of different things, a lot of different problems in the world. Why recruiting?
Well, recruiting for me was just kind of a really weird and interesting story, because when I was in college at the University of New Hampshire, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't even want to go to college. I just wanted to play hockey, and I didn't really care about much except, playing sports. And everyone goes through that epiphany, especially at 5'11", 175, that I'm never going to be anything more than just a very average hockey player. But there was a class that said business consulting, and I didn't know what it was. And I signed up for it and got in line with all these kids. I did grow up. My father was in the military, so, I did go to, schools that required me to wear a tie and when I was little, and just seeing, growing up in that life. So when I lined up to go to that class, I think the kids in front of me went to a daycare in Dover, New Hampshire. I have no idea what they did, probably a marketing project or something. And me and 4 kids went to a staffing company in Nashua, New Hampshire. And so I drove down there, and I didn't have on Birkenstocks and a t-shirt like the other 4 typical New Hampshire children. And I put a shirt and tie on and showed up there and said, "What do we do?" And they handed me a stack of resumes and said, "Call these people." What do I say? They handed me a script. Like, okay. And so I start picking up the phone, calling these people. "You're looking for a job, contract or perm. Do you have an updated, we were cleaning their database up. That's all we were doing.
Right.
And I forget, I might've been there. I was a pretty brash young man, but I had a lot of respect. But I looked at this woman that I was working for, and I said, "How much money do you make?" And I think she told me she made like $65,000. This is 1992.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, like that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money
for doing this. Like all you do is call people, and then they look for this, and you match these things together. Like, wow. Anyway, I started working there every day after school. I would leave. I didn't have class. I'd drive down there, and they were like, "Look, your grade's done. We'll tell them you're in." And they started paying me, and so I started working there. Every single opportunity I could, I would drive down there. Yes, on my motorcycle. I would work there. And so when I got out of school, I went and worked for their competitor in Boston, hot market, and moved to downtown Boston and worked for this company. And we were just doing recruiting. So I did some recruiting and sales. I worked there for a couple of years. Interesting. The IT business back then was crazy. I was working for this company. We were all suited up,
Oh yeah.
There's cufflinks, the whole 9 yards, we're calling on Fidelity and Digital and Motorola and EMC and all these New England based companies.
Oh yeah.
And so I worked there for a few years, and then I ran into a guy who was doing recruiting, and he was doing contract recruiting, and he told me how much money he was making. And I was like, whoa, really? Like, this is even easier. Like, I don't have to sweat commissions and closing deals. Like,
different game. Yeah.
But the big thing for me was, I was like, man, I can go work there as a contractor. So I went and worked for this software company for like 6 or 9 month contract. Then I got hired to work in another contract for a research company. called the Aberdeen Group. Fascinating. Like, I didn't know anything about research companies. I'm working in downtown Boston in this high rise. I'm 23 years old. I'm so young. I'm handling all their hiring. And then I went to work for another company. Then I went to work for Genetics Institute. I just kept doing these contracts. And what was interesting to me about them is I was getting exposure to all these different businesses, like learning how I learned how a drug was built. And this biotech company had this massive drug coming out called Numega, Oprevlicate. And they had always built drugs and co-licensed them out to other Shearing Plow, whoever had that division. Well, this was $1 billion drug. It was, it basically restored your platelet levels when you're going through chemo to shorten the cycles down. Right. So they said, we want to build a sales force. I'm like, okay, so I joined the team. I think there were like 3 recruiters on the team. And then there was 3 of us that flew all over the country. Now this is pre-TSA. So I would fly to Midway Airport and go to the Admirals Club. And salespeople are great. You call 10 salespeople, you get 45 calls back. So, I would literally fly into a city and have a 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. I would interview people all day long. And we hired 125 people in 4 months. We built a national sales force, regional business, area business manager, regional business managers, and then all these reps, and successfully launched this. I was starting a training company with a friend of mine up in Boston, Windows, Word, Excel training type of stuff. And I was actually teaching a lot of classes. We started this company called Progressive Solutions with my buddy, Mark. I was doing some contract stuff and just having a great time. And a friend of mine who was, that I lived with his little brother in Boston. We all worked at the same company. He started a business in DC and he kept wanting me to come work for him. And I was like, listen, dude, I'm not moving to Chicago, New York, or DC. I live in Boston. They're all the exact same place. I'm not moving here. And he called me one day in 1998 and said, what about Dallas? And I knew nothing about Dallas except the Cowboys. That's it. I don't know anything about Dallas.
That was enough not to go.
So I jump on a plane in April, come down here, trying to check this, concrete jungle out. And I remember we went out to lunch on Saturday, and I got completely sunburned in about 2 seconds, sitting outside in 30 minutes. Flew home, and I thought, my mom had just moved to Florida, and I said, why not? If I'm ever I can always come back. What I do for a living is easy. Why not? I'm never going to leave Boston if I don't. I've been here my whole life in New England. So I moved here May 31st, 1998, Sunday night, landed in Dallas, went to work at the Galleria Tower June 1st, Monday morning, and, back in the grind. We were doing consulting based work. So essentially we were building software or doing consulting projects that big guys wouldn't do because they were too small. So a lot of like $1 million contracts. And we did a bunch in the telco space with MCI up there in Richardson for a lot of years, built their order entry system, got acquired pretty fast, working for another company. Then that company got acquired. Now I'm working for a massive company. I'm employee 32789-B or something. Like, this isn't for me. I got to get out of here. And so,
but you've fallen in love with Dallas at this point.
I'm here to stay, I think. I remember I flew home. I used to call home for Christmas one day. And I remember walking off the plane at Logan Airport, and it was like 10 below. The wind was blowing, and I'm like, get me out of here. I'll take the heat. So, I'm definitely here to stay at this point. Found myself working at a PEO. Thought this was interesting. Outsourcing HR, hiring and managing people and visa issues and all this stuff for, going on almost 10 years now. This might be a really good fit for me. And so I'm working at this PEO in Dallas, small PEO, and I'm talking to local businesses in Dallas about PEO services. And quite honestly, nobody gave a shit about payroll and benefits.
Nope.
It was a little too early, I think. But what they did really care about was healthcare.
Yep.
They all asked me the same question. How much is your healthcare? And, keep in mind, I grew up very active, very athletic, played hockey and all this kind of stuff, gym every day, eating like a crazy person, healthy. And I'm working at this PEO, and it was the first company I had ever worked for that actually looked like America. I never worked for a company. Every company I worked for was just a bunch of me's in there. right? We all went to the gym at lunch. We all played softball after work. It was like literally a clone of just the exact same human being. Yeah. Shit, I think we even dressed the same. And it was a dress code. Blue suits or gray suits, no double breasted. It was we're like a factory. We're like clones. And all of a sudden, I'm working in a company where 65% of them were overweight, 32%
out of shape,
physically obese, right? And these were all national numbers. And I'm going, wow. Like, do you guys have a birthday cake every morning at 10 a.m.? Like, is there always a birthday party? Is anybody going to go to the gym with me at lunch today? Like, it was.
There's more donuts? There's more donuts in the break room. Got it. Yeah.
So I remember I was going to work out one day at lunch, and the receptionist said to me, her name was Kat Stevens. Probably shouldn't say that. You might have to beep that out. She was the vice president of First Impression. Great lady, phenomenal woman. She asked me for help. And she said, hey, Michael, and I had only worked there a few months. So here she is asking a 29-year-old guy, hey, how do I get healthy? I think I'm 30 years old at this point. Could you give me some exercise to do? And I'm thinking, wow, the courage it took that woman to ask me for help of all people, like just a regular guy. I don't understand this. And so I really took it to heart. I went to the gym that day, looked around at all the same people that are in the gym because it's basically the same group of people, this little network. And started thinking about how flawed the gym model was and how 82% of people join a national fitness chain, go twice or less and never go back. And, all these things. And then people are dying in the workplace. And I'm watching health around me just deteriorate. And I'm talking to companies about healthcare costs, and they just wanted to know if it was cheaper. So back then it was about $3,000, $3,200 per employee per year. But the study said by 2008, it was going to hit $7,500. And by 2010, it was going to hit $10,000. Which, by the way, it all did. It rocketed up. And I just said to myself, man, companies are going to have to get in the game. They're going to have to start taking care of their employees. And this isn't about gym memberships. This is about giving people personalized help. So when I sat down at lunch that day, after I worked out, Cafe Brazil, chicken breast, side of spinach, typical meal, I flipped my napkin over and said, what does she need? What does she really need? What can I write down that she's actually going to do and it's going to improve her health? And I remember all I wrote down was motivation and accountability. It didn't really matter what she did. She just needed to do something. She needed to just get up, move, walk better, make 2 better choices a week. Stop eating this, do this. Just, the problem is everyone's chasing perfection instead of just making progress. Let's just do these things for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, make it a part of our lifestyle and then do this. People ask me all kinds of crazy stuff about health. Should I do this? Should I do this? And it's like, man, all the stuff you see me do is all part of a massive cycle. Individually, they're going to do absolutely nothing for your health. But together, you can have optimal health. And so I had, pretty good success when I was younger enough, and I was fortunate enough where I could take a risk. So I started this company, had a horrible name. It was called Elite Wellness. And in hindsight, it was really stupid. But I set out to build a corporate wellness company. A guy that I played hockey with, brilliant technology guy, got him to come on board. We started building what we called health management software, where we could go into a population and assess them, ask them questions, check all their biometric data. And then we did something really unique, which we integrated with the carriers to pull in the raw claims feeds. And so now I had a really clear picture of how William thinks he feels, what's really going on inside the engine, and is he behaving in the health plan appropriately? Because obviously prevention is the key, driving 100%. People into the system, condition management, so on and so forth. Took about 3-4 years, about 2007. I remember I got a client to sign a 6-figure deal and was like, wow, we did it. Like this is 6 figures in wellness was a landslide.
Yes.
On software. And then 2008, we had a pretty special year. By 2007, we signed, a couple $100,000, then another $250,000 deal. And then somehow we signed a $1.7 million contract with a pretty big company, and it was off. We were off to the races. We took that company, and the next few years were kind of blurry, to be honest with you. Hiring hundreds of people and having clients in every state and being at the airport every day, and it was really cool. It was fun. There were some nice awards and accolades over the years. It really was a blur being that young and figuring it out and seeing it happen and. All the way to an exit, which is pretty cool to take a nap. And then all of a sudden all this cool shit happens. But it was fun. We had a really cool culture. I hired this marketing firm called Star Tin Cup back in 2000, I think I had 7, and said, listen, I hate this name. I don't like it. It's, people are asking me if I'm a chiropractor. My dog food says wellness on it. I'm tired of this. And so William and his team, Brett, took me through this branding process. I took no one in the company with me. I just told Dave, my CTO, I said, listen, here's what we're doing. And taught me about branding and naming and how we do it. And I'd go into their office and they had all these names on the wall. And the Latin word viva was up there. And we played off all these iterations. William even said it wrong earlier, even though he came up with the name. It was Vivere that we did. It was Vivere. We talked about the pros and cons. Like, nobody can pronounce this thing. Like, what does this mean? But we did it. I rebranded the company 5 years in, which was kind of scary, but it took off. It had a really cool, it had a story behind it, and we got to tell our story and really be whoever we wanted to be. And so, we grew through a pretty difficult time. 8, 9, 10 were not great times in the US, and we doubled our business through there. No issue. It was a super fun time. Lots of lessons learned, but to see and grow a company like that was a huge accomplishment. So, it was a wild story. So, here I was in the HR space, but now kind of over here, I was talking to HR people all day long, but it was about a different topic. And, we exited that business, 2016. So that was fun. I'm, I don't know, 42 years old or something like that. I don't remember. 43. And
this episode is brought to you by Marqeta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit Marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target's Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
Am I just going to retire, or what do I do now? And, I was home for a bit, and it was just time for me to get back to work. And I was playing at the track, and I started a motorsports company and super into some health things, IV therapy and stuff like that. So I started an IV therapy company, ended up a wellness company. So I was operating these portfolio businesses, and, as I mentioned earlier, I've hired every marketing firm in DFW over the last, X amount of years, 20 years. And so I decided to start my own marketing company to support my portfolio companies, just bring it in-house. Marketing really was changing so much, especially with social media and how they're taking over the world, and how you acquire customers and how your website needs to operate. So we brought that all in-house. And then my tech guys needed to come back because we're family, and they were working for the company that bought us. And so we brought them back in, maybe quietly for a little bit until the legal times were right. But we started a development company. We started working on software that we thought was really cool. And we were building some compliance software, which actually turned out to be really interesting because of COVID. Companies were trying to figure out how to be compliant. Mm-hmm. What do we do if somebody has COVID? How are we supposed to notify everybody? And so we had a really cool piece of tech that was there. We were hiring people in 2019 for the marketing firm. And I remember this gal was working for me, and I walked into her office, and she was reading resumes. And I literally went, we still do that?
Here we go again.
Like, no, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, people still apply to jobs with resumes today in this digital world? She's like, yeah. So I said, let me ask you a question. What are you doing right now? Like, what do you do? She goes, well, I'm trying to find them on social media, look them up on LinkedIn. I'm just trying to see what they look like. I want to hear them talk. And I'm watching her, and I'm going, my God, like, this is archaic. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I had this sort of deja vu moment of 2003, where I went back into my office and I started looking what was out there for a minute, because I'm not a big, worry about what other people are doing. But I looked at the tools that were out there, and like, this is archaic. We don't need to be tracking people. We need to be engaging people. We need to start treating applicants like customers. We need to give people a chance to tell their story, because people have a voice. Like, I'm supposed to take my entire career and put this on a piece of paper, and you're going to judge me by that? Like, this makes no sense. Like, I'm a person. I have a story. I need to be heard. And then I read that 68% of people would quit their job tomorrow, whether they don't like their boss, the cost of the company, the morals, their pay, their coworker, whatever the case may be, but they don't. Why don't they? Well, put your resume on a job board, you risk losing your current job. You can't change and so the people that are out there are the ones looking, which isn't a problem, but the good people that we're trying to attract are sitting there. So how do we build something that's private? How do we give people a voice? I was talking to our new CMO who worked for us 10 years ago. And I said, think about this. If somebody on your team wants to go on a job interview right now, what do they have to do? And she was guessing. I go, let me just give you the answer. They have to lie to you. They have to lie. Right. The entire process causes people to act immoral. They have to lie. I have a doctor's appointment. You don't have a doctor's appointment. You're going on a job interview, right? You have to lie. I got fired from my first job. I remember Mark called me into his office and he's like, where were you? And I was like, he was like, you're on a job interview. He's like, get out of here. Now, luckily I got the job. It was at that software company, but I had to lie to him. And that's not a good way to be. So,
no.
So anyway, we wanted to build a place, an ecosystem, two ecosystems where people could tell their story, where people could be heard, where people don't have to go on first and second round interviews. And my whole goal was, if step 1 is I need to hire someone, if step 10 is they're hired, I truly believe that we could digitize 95% of this process. And by digitize, I actually mean humanize.
Right.
Use the tools. My son has sent me 5 Instagram messages today. I think it's the only way he knows how to communicate, right?
Yep.
Short form video and asynchronous communication is how we talk. And I think it was Chris Rock did a comedy show and he said, I have talked to my wife in the last 5 years more than my parents have talked in their entire life. My dad would go to work at 6 a.m., come home at 8 p.m. We could have died at 8 a.m. He wouldn't have known about it until he got home. My wife and I are texting back and forth all day. The exchange of information is at an all-time high. And by the way, it's not going anywhere. But yet applicants submit their life work and say, I want to come work for you, right? Like, this is a huge decision in your life, and they don't hear anything back. What an awful process this is. The engagement of hiring is just archaic. So I started looking at HR tech in general, and I found that the HR tech that was really killer, that was good, a lot was HRIS forward.
Right.
So the post-hire stuff has gotten really good. The payroll companies, they've just gotten better, like apps and, and then we've digitized job boards. That's great. But to be honest with you, they're very noisy, loud networks, and it's really tough they're not humanized. And then a lot of the other tech that I found was trying to make the process better. The problem is the process is broken. The entire process is broken. We're getting hundreds of people to apply. It takes human time, way too much to get through these. I don't know who's really, I know they're interested because they've applied, but yet when I call them, they don't call me back. And 2.5 hours to get to a first interview to only find out this isn't a good chemistry fit. And so we just set out to build something new and fresh and modern, but also built on the right tech stack that was built for scale. And that's super important. A lot of the legacy technology is, listen, if you're not, we've been working with AI before AI became a household name, right? You've got to use these tools. It's not about having it sitting out there. It's about bringing it into your tech stack and making sure it's scalable. And so we set out to do that. And so I love the word connect because that's what we were doing. The domain was available for $9.8 million, CONNECT. So I decided to drop some letters, CNECT, and I started Connect. And I said, you know what? Pressure and time. We're going to Andy Dufresne the shit out of this thing, and I'm going to make it work. And we did it. We got it built. We got the product built in 2022. Tested it out with our family and friends, and it was working really good. Realized we needed to plug into the ecosystem. William's actually been an advisor to the company. talked about job distribution. How do we plug into the networks of folks to drive traffic in? So we built a lot of that out in 2022. And then last year we spent almost all of our efforts on what we call multi-tenancy. For example, we're about to sign a company that's got 3 brands, 9 locations. They all need their own careers pages. They all have their own story to tell. So our multi-tenancy technology works really great in that realm. And we just kind of stayed under the radar. We stayed in stealth mode for, until we were ready. We could have launched earlier. We could have done these things earlier, but I wanted to make sure it was right in that it worked and that we were built for scale. I could put 10 million people on our platform tomorrow and it won't break. And it makes people happy and it works. And I love seeing people tell their story. And so here I am, 2024, from 30 something years ago, looking at, no more resumes, digital profiles. I think everyone will have a digital profile in the future. I love the concept of being able to click a button and hear someone tell their story in their own voice, in their own words, and then exchange digital dialogue back and forth with them and get to know them. And it's just happening. And I got this quote from this guy once, and he said, hiring doesn't need to take days, weeks, and months. It can be hours, minutes, and seconds. And, we can do that with our system. And what I've seen so far in the data over the last year is we are reducing the human time by 90%. And we also have a 95% final interview to offer accepted ratio. So think about that. Think about a retail company or a restaurant group that has a 60% no-show rate. I'm not talking about offer accepted ratio, because we know that the more people interact with our system, right, the more they apply to a job. And when someone applies to a job, it's like, hey, William, thanks so much. We got your resume. Tell us, we got your digital profile. Tell us more about yourself immediately. And all of a sudden he's like, holy shit, like I'd never even thought that. I can download this app and I can see the status of my application. Tell us more. Well, if William doesn't get back to me for 3 or 4 days, he's probably not that interested. But the applicants that are engaging. And so we can automate the interview process, meaning tell me all the questions you want as a hiring manager. I'll make sure they're all asked, and I'll spread them out over time. We'll create some engagement. Right. And we can present to the hiring manager the most complete picture that anyone's ever seen of a person, meaning here is their profile. Here's what they've done. Here's the answers to the questions you wanted to know. Here's what they had to say about themselves. Here's their technical answers. Here's their personal answers. Here's their culture answers. And you can make a decision in minutes, because you're looking at something that is so much more broad than anything they've ever seen. So, that's it. That's what I'm doing.
Ryan, I know you've got a ton of questions. I clearly have questions, but go ahead.
No, go for it. I'll let you take the first stab.
Who thrives around you, Michael? What type of person thrives around you?
Yeah, I'd say somebody who's patient, for sure. I mean, listen, this isn't the place where you're going to sit back and, grow grass under your feet. Listen, I'm a high energy guy. There's no doubt about it. And
couldn't tell.
I'd rather, swing and miss, right? You're going to the Hall of Fame if you bat 350. So that means you
probably less than that.
Yeah, probably less, right? So listen, I'm a take shots, work, try, effort, take reps, pound away. People like change. I'm not going to sit back. Someone asked me a couple of years ago, she said, when are you going to be happy with the product? And I said, never, absolutely never. I'll never be. I'm happy today. I think it's fantastic, but I'm laying in bed trying to figure out how to, I've got a couple of concepts that are going to push us even further ahead and build up the next step of things. So no, that's not how software works. It's not a house. You don't build it and live in it. It's constantly needing updates.
Earlier as we kicked off, you said you don't fear anything, but you've learned to respect. Talk about that a little more, because I think a lot of people that listen to this show or that will listen to the show, they're just scared, right? They're afraid to take that step into either entrepreneurship or to push whatever they're doing that little bit further to make it better.
Yeah, listen, I think everyone's got a little bit of fear, but I think where people make a mistake is they try and do too much too soon, right? Yeah. And it's this sort of concept of just figuring out what you're capable of doing right? And then doing a little bit more. But what I see a lot of people do is they find their capability, they find their pace, they find their groove, and they never push even further. And you'd be surprised at what you can do. As crazy as this sounds, I'm a big health crazy guy, and I decided I was gonna. I did a 36-hour fast, and I decided I'm going to do this 3-day fast. And in my mind, I'm like, there's no way I can get through this. I did an 84-hour fast in January, like nothing but water, 84 hours. And it wasn't for any other reason. I was just, what I read about it was the long-term impacts of, not getting cancer and dementia and all that stuff, which I'm really into, especially as I have, teenage kids and I want to be there when, I'm 70, I want to be this role. But, just mentally pushing yourself through it. I think people get too wrapped up in fear instead of going and embracing it. And then also, if it doesn't work, just learning why and figuring that out. And so, taking the first step, I think for a lot of folks is the hardest because it's overwhelming. But if there's anything I've learned is that the entire world we live in just sets people up to fail. And it starts with our health, right? The food we eat. I saw yesterday that it used to be 10 years ago, 61% of all kids' diets were made up of, highly processed foods. And now it's up to 71%. Well, you wonder why obesity is on the rise. Like, I didn't eat that when I grew up. And so, it starts with your health. Kids are more and more inactive. Adults are more and more inactive. The number one form of communication is our phone. We're watching videos on our phone. And so it just breeds this level of contentment instead of driving forward. Like we're capable of so much more if we just put in the work. And I just tell people to just move, like get started, like take care of your body first, take care of your mind, get up earlier, and you'd be surprised at my kids laugh because it's 8:30. I'm like, well, daddy's hitting the sack because I got to get to bed at 4 or 9 because I'm up at 4:30 or 5. But, I think it's the fear of failure so much instead of just embracing the knowledge you can learn from trying something.
So when leadership over the last couple of years for you, leading, I guess you would have been with a bunch of Gen Xers and probably some millennials with your last company as you started. You're probably touching on more millennials and Gen Zers and probably even younger than that. What has that changed in you? What have you seen?
Patience.
Kind of in
Lots of patience.
Their patience or your patience?
Mine for sure. Look, I'm an old school guy. I'm not today. I have employees all over the United States and some are all over the world, and people work from home, and it's different. That's a different mindset.
It is.
It's not one that I particularly like because I find that I'm more productive in a particular environment. But Dave, my CTO has taught me a lot about, hey, look, we can manage these workforces, learning how to manage a remote workforce, learning how to manage, if you can manage a remote workforce and make them highly productive. And our entire development team isn't here. I think there's 1 or 2 of them here, but they're all over the United States and they're incredibly productive.
Right.
We manage them differently, right? We have these sprints and we all live in a Zoom meeting all day long and we talk to people and it's just a different way of managing folks. And I think the rest of it around, the generation that's coming up and their expectations, I do see those expectations tempering a little bit in the workplace where we just don't tolerate it, they're real easy things to do from a management perspective. Just start scheduling your meetings at 8 a.m. Schedule your other meetings at 5 p.m. if you're tired of them sliding down the dinosaur back. I don't understand that stuff. I don't understand why people – I used to tell them, if the game starts at this time, I never left with 3 minutes left in the game so I could beat traffic.
No, I hate that. That is the absolute worst.
But it's the world we live in. So you just have to build that culture. And I think, it's hard to do. And, culture of a company is driven by the chemistry of the people. And unfortunately, one of my favorite sort of theories in life is it's called chemistry and timing. It doesn't matter whether it's a friends, if it's a couple, a spouse, a job. Chemistry and timing both have to be equal. And a lot of times we make the decision based on timing instead of chemistry. People do it all the time. Oh, I need to get married. I need a girlfriend. It's time for me to settle down. And we make the wrong choice. Or, We certainly do it in jobs all the time. And I know companies really do this. Like, I got to get somebody in here. That's better than nothing. Well, that hire can literally set you back, not just from, they come in and fill a void for a certain time frame, but they can also cause, they start chipping away at the culture of your organization that you work so hardly to build. The culture is driven by the chemistry of the people. And so how can we speed up learning about somebody through the hiring process? Like by asking them questions like, hey, tell me what you're passionate about. It's a great question. Just ask them, start to really, we got to work with these folks day in and day out. And there are roles that this stuff is really, really crucial. So, I'm really big on, building a great team. We're not perfect at it, but I think we've done a really good job. Over the course of my career, we really, care about people. We were back in the wellness healthcare days. We did a great job of taking care of our staff, I believe. And, it was really a fun place to work. And so we motivated people in the right ways. It wasn't all economics. There's things you can do to, treat people right. I remember when we shut down Christmas party, said we were getting too big. So instead of spending $50,000 or $100,000 on taking 200 people out, I was like, let's go to Best Buy and buy like 50 TVs and, game consoles. And we did all these giveaways, it was more fun. I don't want to hang out with your spouse anyway, to be honest with you.
It's much better that way. Yeah.
It's better, right? Better for HR. I can tell you that.
Come down at 4:00 and go in the training room and just have some fun together. And
so I got a question for you around, and this is more, I think, do you ever get into your own head? Right. So I hear you talking and I'm thinking you've got a ton of shit going on. You ever get in your own head and you're like, yeah, I shouldn't do that. And like, how do you navigate that? Cause like, I'm following you everywhere. Like I love the story and I'm just thinking so many people, they get in their head and they stop, not even get started. They stop. They don't know how to navigate that. I feel like you're really good at that.
Yeah. I it's funny. Today is a perfect example. I had an 11:30, 12:30, 1. I've got a 2, which I'll be late for, and a 3:30. My 11:30 canceled, and I got a lot on my plate, a lot on my brain, and I worked out this morning at 7:00, and I left. I left the office and went and sweat for an hour. I came back completely drenched. I got to think, and I got to find those times to think, and so. Yeah. A lot of my thinking happens, at night, especially to my wife's chagrin. Like Sunday at about 4:00, she's like, "Oh yeah, he's already gone." Cause I try and shut it down so I can at least get some time. But I try and think through it. But honestly, it comes back to this: no matter what, I got to keep digging that hole. I got to keep digging. So maybe this isn't the right thing to do, but I'm just going to keep trying. And then, get the feedback, learn from it, see what's working. Why is this, not happening? Why isn't this progressing? The answer is always in the market. The answer is always in the people. Talk to the people. And one of the coolest things about Connect is, I've shown this thing now thousands of times. I've shown it to the greatest HR minds in the world. I've shown it to 13-year-old kids and they all go, wow, it's a really cool story. And it's so applicable. And it makes so much sense, and it feels good to be doing something positive, which I think is really a treat. But yeah, look, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There's a lot of tough days, starting a company and making a decision last year that we're going to put revenue off for another year and spend millions of dollars, which is we're spending $250,000 a month on development and just to do that. But I believed in my heart it was worth it. And I knew that we were on the right track. So yeah, listen, I'm not void from fear, but you got to own your decisions and stand up to your mistakes and, and not be afraid to say that didn't work. And I'm not afraid to say that, but I'm going to keep on swinging.
When do you know it's time?
Yeah.
My bad. Well, one last question. How do you know it's time to say goodbye to that idea?
Ooh. So in all honesty, I knew it was time at Viveri because I wasn't having fun anymore.
Right.
It wasn't, my job was completely different. I felt like my office turned into a giant toilet bowl. It was just problem central. Like nobody came. It was.
Well, it's the same thing when you were on the IT side and you got acquired to get acquired to get acquired. You said your badge number, I think I heard Niner in there at one point. You know, at that point, it just became, it wasn't fun.
Yeah, I know where I'm supposed to be, and I like building things. And the minute
high growth,
don't feel like I get to build things, then it's just time to move on. And the biggest difference between this version of me and the version, 10, 15 years ago is just, experience. You get, just being in the ring and sort of knowing the outcomes and knowing what could potentially happen. And I think that the biggest lesson I've learned, the biggest takeaway, and I think more people should do this, and it also comes to, ties into mental health, and not to get on a soapbox, but talking is a really important thing, right? You talk about, people don't talk about how they feel. And so as an executive, it's really important to have people in your life. It's really important to have advisors. I can pick up the phone and call my buddy Eric and say, dude, this is what I got going on. Tell me your two thoughts. And he works in a completely separate industry, right? But we can talk. I can call William and be like, hey, dude, what do you think about this? I'm trying to do this. And I think having the courage to not know all the answers and to tap into your network and say, you know what, dude, I need your help. Like I'm out, or I'm stuck. Here's where I'm thinking about going. Trust me, William will tell me exactly where he thinks I should go. Like he's not void of an opinion, right? And so I think that's another big component in terms of making sure that you surround yourself, not just your employees and your team. I don't need a bunch of yes people. I love, Robin, our CMO. I remember when she started at the very back in the day, I marched into her office and I said, hey, let's put the pink ribbon behind the logo for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And she looked at me and said, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? Like, no one says no to me. Like, I'm the idea guy. Like, let's do this. And she had a reason for it. She goes, we're trying to build this brand. We cannot be messing around with the colors and the logo. We're not Google. Like, knock it off. And she said no. And I was like, I literally walked back to my office with my tail between my legs, like, wow. Like, but I was actually happy that she told me what she felt. And look, that's why I hired her. So, making sure you empower people to tell you the things, and listen, if they don't agree and you say, look, we're going to do this anyway, and it's on me if we fail, but let's get our oars in the water and let's start rowing, and dealing with those things. So yeah, I guess the answer is just being able to, I'm not void of having concerns or fear, but I've learned to pick up the phone and talk to folks and say, actually, I don't want to pick up the phone. I need to see your face when I say this, because I need to see if you're like, dude, you're nuts, or that's brilliant, or yeah, let's try that. And I got to tell you, just William alone has given me 3 or 4 really good things. Listen, he's given me probably 30 things, but he's given me 3 or 4 really good things. And I would tell you 2 of them saved me 4 to 6 months of detracting labor, which probably saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So having the courage to talk to folks, I think, is really important.
Drops Mike, walks off stage. Brother, I know you got to get on your next thing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Good to see you, bud.
Appreciate you.